welcome back to my channel. In today's video I will be sharing our curriculum hits and a couple misses from this past school year, things that we truly love and use and a few that we could have done without. This will also answer questions from previous videos that you may have found me through on this YouTube channel, and you've asked, do you still use that curriculum? Do you still recommend that curriculum? So hopefully that will answer the question yes or no in this video as well. So this is a video part of a collaboration of other homeschool moms hosted by Jessica from the 𝐒𝐴𝐿𝐴 Way and Abby from Rooted in Rest. They host a monthly collaboration for other homeschool moms to share different topics, and I always love to see what other women have to share, what's working for their home and their school. And so this monthly collaboration is all about our hits and misses, so I will link that playlist down below, and also their two accounts. They are two wonderful homeschool moms that I have just gleaned so much information throughout the years, and I know you will enjoy them too. So if you're new here, my name is Hannah and I'm a homeschool mom of 4 children. This past year, we did primarily ambleside online for my oldest 2. Obviously, the younger 2 boys are not school age. They just kind of tag along. And we also did some other things as we modified our Charlotte Mason homeschool. And so you're going to see a diverse feast here in today's video. So I'm going to first start with things that we really enjoyed as a family, and then I will talk about each of my 2 daughters and also the things that they liked and maybe didn't like so much, just so that you have an idea, you're moving forward. Maybe you have Charlotte Mason on your mind or even ambleside, and you've looked at the book list and you just want to get a, hands-on kind of one-on-one opinion on the things that are listed. So hopefully you will receive that today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new around here and you're a homeschool mom and you like this type of content, then I hope you will subscribe and join us as we head into our new school year and we get to share and experience all of the things together. So first I'm going to start with some of our family studies. This includes morning basket, things that we rotated throughout this past year, and these that I'm sharing today were all hits, everything that worked really well for us. So this is one thing that we did this year. This was a book that actually my mom used, and it's How You Are Changing. It goes through, everything from how does a baby made, how are you changing, what is intercourse, all of those things. But it comes from a biblical standpoint. I think if I can find these, I will put it on Amazon. But I'm not sure if this one is still available because it's from like the 90s. But this was an excellent book, and it made teaching my girls all of the things really easy and understandable for them. Okay, so then we have these 2. Now I would say for me personally, I absolutely loved these books. This is our Island Story, which is for year 1, year 2, and possibly year 3 as well. And then Parables of Nature is also scheduled throughout like the first 4 years of ambleside. We do these as a family. Our Island Story we've been doing as a family because my oldest did not do the early years of ambleside, and I wanted her to have the English history as well. And the chapters are so short. They're like, most of them are 2 or 3 pages. So we really like this book. I think it's a great history curriculum for England, history of England, whether you're doing Charlotte Mason or not. And then Parables of Nature, we did not go through like all the recommended readings of this one, just because they are a bit longer, and we also do Laying Down the Rails and some other books. And so we got through maybe like half of the recommended readings for this year, but the stories that we did read are really nice. Delightful. I would say they're better for older kids. I think that this is recommended for the earlier years, but my girls were 10 and 8 this past school year, and I definitely think this is a little bit more advanced listening book. So if your child's not used to read alouds, I would skip this and wait on this until they're a little bit older. But it is a really good book, and I would recommend it. Okay, definitely a hit for us are the Shakespeare plays. We have really loved Shakespeare. We actually got to go see a free live performance at a local state park recently. We did 2 of the comedies, and my girls just love them. So one thing that I recommend with the Shakespeare plays, you can definitely read it out loud together. We did that with Midsummer Night's Dream, but also what we did was we listened to them on Audible. So I got like a theatrical version of the play on Audible, and we could listen to it and follow along. And that, I feel like, was a great way to bring the characters to life rather than just us and our voices. So that is something I definitely recommend when you're doing your Shakespeare plays. Okay, the next book we did was Trial and Triumph. We only got through, I think, 8 of these figures. Now, they're actually scheduled to follow alongside your child's history term, whatever they're in that. But I just use this as a family read aloud, and then I had the girls narrate really with each other, kind of back and forth. So we use this as just like a Bible history about the martyrs and the people that have gone through the Bible history. And I think it works great as a spine. I don't necessarily feel like you have to follow the ambleside schedule with this one. I'll leave that up to every individual family, because we read this one as a family. They are short. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to do it in your morning time, and we would try to do it once a week or once every other week. So this is well written, very interesting, and engaging. Okay, so speaking Spanish by the Miss Mason and Francois, we are just about halfway, I think actually a little bit over halfway. We've been working on this all year, and I do like this. We have the audio with it. I think the lessons are short, easy. It is conversational Spanish. Do I feel like we have been able to put this into practice in our everyday life? No. And so we need to do a better job of speaking in Spanish to one another so that we can really get it under our belt. But I do think that we've learned quite a bit, and they know some of the phrases by heart, some of the verses, some of the counting and things. So it has been good, though. It is a great curriculum, and I would recommend this as well. Okay, we have just about finished the 𝐒𝐿𝐺, I think is how it's actually pronounced. I love this book. I would do it again in a couple years with my boys. It has, I think, about 70 lessons, so we only have a couple left, and it goes through the whole doctrine of God, the church, salvation, everything. And so I think this is an excellent book for your morning time. We read it. We were reading it every day, which is basically why we finished the book. And the lessons are very short. We read all the scriptures that go along with it. And so this is one that I do have linked in my Amazon store, just because I think it's such a lovely, beautiful book. And so if you're looking for a Bible curriculum for your morning basket, I would definitely recommend the 𝐒𝐿𝐺. It is excellent. These are a few things that I have shared before about on previous videos, and people have asked me to give an update or have asked if I'm still using them and love them. And so I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to give a little update. Okay, so during our main school year in December, I made a big change, and I used these little wipe off, check off list for my daughters. It's in my planning video, which I'll link down below. This has worked really well. I'm not using one for our summer schedule, which I talked about in my summer plan video, but during the school year, this will be exactly how I implement come fall, our routine and schedule. It just made it really easy for the girls to keep track of what they needed to get done, and they could be self-motivated. Okay, these are things that I've talked about and still love, so I'm not going to expound on them. I have a whole video on Simply Charlotte Mason Curriculum, which I can link down below, that I go into more detail. But laying down the rails, still using it, still loving it. The Simply Charlotte Mason Picture Study, absolutely could not recommend these enough. They're a wonderful addition to your morning time. Along with enjoying the poems, this just makes learning about a poet and his specific poems really simple and clear. I recently have had people ask me, are you still using Matthew C? Yes, because I know one video that a lot of you find me through is my review on Matthew C, which I did over 2 years ago, I believe, We are still using it and loving it, 5 years strong. So my oldest is in Epsilon, my second is in Gamma, and my little boy, my third child will be in primer this fall. So still loving it, still using it. 2 things that we get from The Good and the Beautiful. This one is something that I use after my kids finish all of the copybooks from Simply Charlotte Mason. I believe they're done, but if they want something else, and my girls, I got them these because they just wanted to have like something fun for some more cursive practice, and they do it like twice a week. And it's optional, but they enjoy it, and the books are really cute. This is the typing book 3 because my oldest is in this one. She's, I think, finishing it up. I'm not sure where she's at, but we do like the typing program from The Good and the Beautiful. And then one other thing that I'm still using and loving that you guys have asked is the Using Language Well Spelling Wisdom from Simply Charlotte Mason. I did a flip through, I think a year or 2 ago, which I'll link down below, just like Matthew C. And still using and loving this curriculum after, I think we are on our 3rd year. Yeah, we finished up our 3rd year with this curriculum. So my oldest is about halfway done with book 2, and they take 2 to 3 years to go through. So that is one that we loved. Now, our favorite family read aloud, I probably should have polled my kids to see which one their favorite was this year. But I think it was Around the World in 80 Days. We really, really enjoyed this book. It was hilarious. I think it also helped that my mom did like a little book club party. We read it with the cousins. That makes it fun too. But this is a beautiful copy from the Osborne Illustrated Classics, which we have quite a few of. And I think this was our favorite read aloud. So that is everything for our family subjects. Now I'm just going to highlight some of our favorite books for each child and maybe things that we didn't care for as much. If you're familiar with the Ambleside Online, then you probably know a lot of the books that are on year 2 or year 4. If you're not, even if you're not Charlotte Mason, I definitely encourage you to check out the Ambleside website. Their book lists are incredible. Their living book lists, their suggestions, most of them hit the mark. And even if you're just doing it for books for family for your morning time, you really can't go wrong. And so I picked some of my favorite. And so if you're not ready to kind of go full Ambleside Online, or you're not even interested in a full Charlotte Mason curriculum, but you are looking for some really good books, living books to add to your morning time or just to read with your children, then I think highlighting some of these books will be helpful for you to decide that. Or if you just want to remove some things from your Ambleside list, then keep these because these are some of the best. Okay, so for my year 2 students, this was by far, I think, our 3 favorite books. Burgess Animals got the top rating of the whole year. So for year 2, this was my daughter's absolute favorite book, was the Burgess Animal book. And this one has some really nice illustrations. This is by Living Book Press, and so they do have most of the illustrations for the animals. You could also print them, but we absolutely love that book. Okay, and then we have the Holling Clancy and Holly books. These are, there's actually a couple more of them, but this is the one that my oldest did, and then these 2, Tree in the Trail and Seabird, are the ones that my year 2 student did. These are wonderful books. I definitely would add these to like my family library must-haves. Need to update that video and add these because these are really, really good. I think that the character development is good. I think that they definitely learn geography and all sorts of things in their like natural animal lore in these, right? So I definitely would recommend you adding these to your family library. Okay, 2 other books that we loved from our year 2 were The Little Duke and Understood Betsy. So these would be 2 that I would recommend people just add to their read alouds or morning basket. This one is about a little girl and just her growth in her person. And really they're living books, and they're able to connect to the ideas, the attributes, and the characters and the growth that we see in them. And so you could say the same thing for Little Duke. It's really just beautiful how he grows as a young boy in his maturity and on to be, you know, king. So definitely would recommend both of these books as well. So now I'm going to go to my oldest, who is finishing up. We have about a week left of year 4 of Ambleside. And so I wanted to hit on some of the things that I thought were hits and some of the things that were like, and some that just really slipped through the cracks. So we have her top favorite of the whole year. So if you're just looking for books that your children will love, no matter what learning homeschool style you do, then this one, The Ocean of Truth, was all about Isaac Newton, and she really attached to this biography and story. It's just really well written by Joyce McPherson. That's the author. And she just connected to this and liked to see what was going to happen in his life and his story. And that's what we want from living books, is that connection and those ideas. Okay, and then this one is her primary spine. This is This Country of Ours. I actually think you start this in year 2, just like the first few chapters. This is your history of the United States. And it's really well done. The chapters are pretty short. I would say some of them could be skipped. If you're looking at your Ambleside, a lot of the colonies, it's interesting, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if all of that will be retained, but who knows? Some might be kept, some might not be. But it is well done. I do like that the lessons and the chapters are short with that one. Okay, so then we have her 2 like geography, like science type books. So we have Madame How and Why and the Storybook of Science. So these 2. This one is kind of like, it's like okay? I think that the problem with Madame How and Why, it's not that it's bad. We learned definitely something about earthquakes and water and how it changes things, and ice, and those are kind of the things that she talked about. I do think it was good. A lot of the references were in England, and so I did have to look up some things on the internet just so we could get like a picture of some of the scenery that was described in the book. So I don't know if there's an equivalent to this idea that is based in America's nature. But the thing is, a lot of the things like water, ice, damage are in the shores of, you know, England. So that's my only complaint, is that sometimes the imagery was hard to imagine, and there's no pictures, so need pictures for that. This one, however, was definitely a hit. This is, I think it's an uncle and his children that go alongside, learning about different, you know, nature and animals, mushrooms, bees, pollinators, everything. Poisonous berries. And so this was definitely engaging, interesting. Chapters are really short, so it takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes to read these. Once in a while you get a long one, but she didn't really complain about this one. So that's a good sign. When she's like, oh, I'll read Storybook of Science, then I know that it's a hit, and she definitely learned a lot. So if you're looking for like a nature study, nature lore, living book of how to explore things in nature, I would definitely recommend Storybook of Science as like a bind for your family. It was really good, and we really enjoyed that. Okay, so the next 2 books I would say the next 2 books were kind of a I think because when we moved to Ambleside Online and I put her in year 4, we definitely stretched ourselves in capabilities, reading abilities, comprehension. A lot of those things were a big jump for my oldest daughter because we hadn't done so much literature in earlier years. So I think these books are great. They're excellent books, but I think because we made that jump, that these perhaps were not as interesting and engaging as they could have been if the reading and comprehension had been just a little more developed through earlier years of Ambleside. So we started off our school year with Poor Richard. It was one of her first read alouds. She really liked the story, kind of like Isaac Newton. This was one of her biographies. And we have actually, I think, 2 Jane Daughtry biographies in our next school year, which will be really interesting. But I do think that some of it was difficult to comprehend just because there was some bigger words and some descriptive sections that sometimes she felt like it was hard for her to narrate, which is okay. You know, Charlotte Mason says kids will take the ideas that they can, 10% of it, and the other 90% they'll just leave it and they'll let it go, just like we do as adults. And so that's how I feel about Poor Richard. And then this one, I know a lot of people rave about it. This is George Washington's World, and we're going to be doing Abraham Lincoln's World next year. This one, I feel about the same way. I think that the book is written really well. I think when she reads the stories, she likes the stories. I do think sometimes it's confusing for her jumping from character to character and only having like 2 to 3 pages per character. And it's long. And so she kind of felt like this was just a long book. It's one that she does throughout the whole year. Now, with Abraham Lincoln's World coming next year, I think one change that we made with this, and so if you have this on your schedule next year, you're looking for kind of like an American history bind to do those time period of that year, I would just do like 1 to 2 stories a day instead of trying to do like 3 or 4 or all 5. So that was something that I learned throughout the year, and at the very end of our year, we finally figured out like 2 stories was like a good rhythm for her. And so moving into Abraham Lincoln's World next year, I will keep that in mind when I go to schedule her weekly calendar, that I give like 3 days a week. So she can just do micro readings through this book, and I think that would help a lot. Otherwise, we liked it, but those are just some things that I learned, and if you are doing ambleside, maybe you'll find that helpful. It's definitely a hard one to kind of just read all the way through and chew all of the information, because it's not a textbook. It doesn't read like a textbook. It reads like a living book, like a story, definitely, but it is a lot of information, more like a textbook. So hopefully that it makes sense. Okay, so then our last 3 things here are kind of more not necessarily the book, but just kind of how I feel about it. So this is A Child's History of the World. This is the history spine for basically years 1, 2, and 3 in the ambleside. And before we switched to this, we had done Mystery of History, which we did love. And I actually bought Story of the World for my year 5 student next year, the modern, volume 4, the modern history. And we're going to see how that reads. It was okay. Sometimes I'm always comparing all of our living books and our read alouds and their biographies. And those are all so rich and wonderful that when I get to like the spine, I'm just like, that's kind of how you feel about it. But it is necessary because it's kind of giving you that overview. And I do think the stories that are in here were interesting. I just think it's a little harder to follow along in the whole grand scheme of things. So definitely, it's up to you if you feel like you should read it or not. And I will say the beginning of this book is not from a Christian's perspective. It is kind of from like more of an evolutionary deist perspective, but Ambleside does not schedule the first few chapters. And then the rest of the book doesn't have any of that. It's just history as history. So if you're wondering that, I think they have that in their footnotes just to clarify. Okay, so this was another biography of my daughter's, but did not go up there with Oceans of Truth. She definitely liked Isaac Newton's way better. She has a really hard time reading Abigail Adams. This is by Natalie Bober. This is probably the only book that I feel like she's fought me on, I guess is the best way to say. We've broken it up into 3 readings, like short readings, and she's still just plugging through it. It's like one of the only books that she's got a lot left to do. And so I don't even know if we'll finish it. So that's one reason I did not pre-read this book, and I'm getting my pre-reading done for year 5. And one of the reasons that I want to have all of the pre-reading done, which I did not finish for year 4, is just so I can kind of help make those decisions. There's other biographies out there about American figures during these time periods. And so maybe there was another one that I could have swapped it out for and to let her try. But that's okay, moving on. I'm sure she's definitely learned a lot about Abigail Adams and probably could write a whole paper on it. So as far as like narration and comprehension, that was definitely like, it's definitely her reading level. I think it just didn't interest her as much as Isaac Newton. So the last miss is actually my fault. So Book of Centuries, year 4 is when you start a Book of Centuries. And my oldest and I were supposed to be filling in all of the people that she learned. Here's just an example. This was some of the ones from our children's history. So she had like who was in there, and then I think that was Parthenion. Yeah. And so you can draw pictures on this side. You can put people on this side. However, we had this scheduled on Fridays. I will not be doing that again this next year. It's either going to be every day at the end of the day if she has someone new she read about, or some new invention, because she's been learning about inventors and inventions and all the modern history of our world, and I really want her to, you know, express that in her Book of Centuries. So I just feel like the book itself from Living Book Press is excellent. I just feel like we weren't as diligent as we could have been helping her make this her own. The good news is the ambleside line is a 6-year cycle, so she's going to be finishing up, you know, modern history, and then we're going to circle back. And so at that point, she's going to be older, she'll be more independent, and she can just really make this Book of Centuries her own. And so I think that's like the light at the end of the tunnel. Is in the end, I still have 4 kids, and sometimes some things slip through the cracks. People have asked me about Book of Centuries. I do like this. I just feel like there were so many Fridays that we forgot to put it in, and once you've like missed that character in history, you don't want to go circle back and try to like work through them all. So that was the only thing. So overall, it was a wonderful year. I think it's almost like my year in review video in as well, although I will have a whole term recap here in a couple weeks. But it was a great year. I think overall, we've loved all the selections from Ambleside except for a few here and there. Definitely our family morning time was rich and wonderful, and I'll link more of our morning time video if you have questions about that. So hopefully this video was helpful. I appreciate all of you guys here on my channel. Thank you so much for just tuning in, sharing your comments, your questions. If you ever want to see something in a video and there's a particular thing you want me to just address or talk about or try to attempt to answer, I will do my best. Just always drop those ideas down below. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.